Hello everyone, welcome to La Excellence IAS, the Hindu news analysis of 8th May 2020. I have a small announcement to make. La Excellence IAS is conducting online live general studies classes. The prelims cum mains batch for 2021 has started from 7th May 2020, that is yesterday. You can register for this course at this given website or call these numbers for further information. The discussion will go on in two parts. Deep, which is daily editorial enrichment program. Here we will be discussing about important articles from the editorials, and in the TNA, that is targeted news analysis, we will be discussing the other important articles for the day. The relevant page numbers for the Hyderabad and Bengaluru editions of the Hindu are given here. The first article for the day is Conducting Elections During a Pandemic. This topic comes under General Studies Paper 2 Indian Polity and Governance and from the topic of elections. The issue is elections during pandemic, and we are going to read about the challenges in conducting elections due to the pandemic. We will be knowing about the powers of Election Commission to postpone elections, what are the various constitutional provisions and apex court judgments regarding the postponement of elections. Also, the example of South Korean model of conducting elections during the pandemic we will be reading, and whether it can be emulated in India we will be seeing. The context is that Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, the CM of Maharashtra, was sworn in as the Chief Minister in November 2019. He was neither an MLC nor an MLA at the time of his swearing in ceremony. So he had to be elected as either MLA or MLC under Article 164 Clause 4, which says that a minister ceases to be a minister if he doesn't get elected to either of the Legislative Assembly or Legislative Council within 6 months after swearing in. In view of this, elections were planned to be held on March 26th, which were postponed by Election Commissioner by using his powers under Article 324 as well as his powers under Section 153 of Representation of Peoples Act 1951. So they were postponed indefinitely because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The various options that could be explored in view of this was extension after 6 months by resigning and again swearing in. But in S.R. Chaudhary versus State of Punjab and others case of 2001, the Supreme Court held that extension after a period of 6 months will be amounting to subversion of the principle of representative government. Remember this case, S.R. Chaudhary versus State of Punjab and others case of 2001. There is another alternative, that is Governor can nominate an individual with special knowledge or practical experience by using his powers under Article 171 Clause 3 Subclause E plus Article 171 Clause 5. But in this case, Governor has put the proposal on hold for more than a fortnight. But later on, because of PM's intervention and the Election Commission's prompt action, now the elections have been scheduled to be conducted on May 21st. May 28th is the deadline for Mr. Uddhav Thackeray to be the CM of Maharashtra. So May 21st, elections are going to be held. In this election, the franchise is very much limited. Only the 288 MLAs who will be voting will have to be casting their votes, and this will not be much of a problem for Election Commissioner to conduct this election. What are the other concerns? There are upcoming assembly elections to be held in Bihar in 2020 November. There are elections pending in other states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Assam in next year. Some studies have predicted that COVID-19 is going to persist for more than 2 years. So can we defer elections for so long? No, we cannot, and we have to conduct these elections in this time period only. While Rajya Sabha and Legislative Council elections can be postponed indefinitely, the assembly elections cannot be postponed for more than 6 months. The Election Commission can postpone these elections to either assembly or to Lok Sabha only for a period of 6 months, because Article 85 Clause 1 and Article 174 Clause 1 say that the gap between two sessions of either Lok Sabha or the Vidhan Sabha should not be for more than 6 months. So now only executive action can be taken by either invoking Article 172 Clause 1, whereby during a state of emergency, an election can be postponed for a maximum period of 1 year in addition to 6 months after the emergency is lifted. But COVID-19 is not an emergency. Emergency is where there is a threat to security and sovereignty of the nation, not due to epidemic or pandemic. So this possibility is also limited. The other action that could be possible is imposition of President's rule under Article 356 Clause 1. But this is also limited because of Supreme Court's intervention many times. In view of this, the author of the article says to draw example of South Korea, where elections were conducted nationwide to 44 million population. There was a massive disinfection drive. There was disinfection of polling centers and mandated the voters for physical distancing, wearing gloves and masks usage, and also use of hand sanitizers. Voters who had temperatures more than 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit were held or were allowed to poll only in secluded areas. Positive patients were also allowed to vote through mailing their ballots, while self-quarantined voters were allowed to vote after 6 p.m. So this example can be emulated in India for the upcoming assembly elections according to the author. The author is S.Y. Qureshi, former Chief Election Commissioner. However, in India, population is a big problem. The population of Bihar itself is more than double or close to double that of South Korea. So this could be a problem. However, we could take the example from South Korea and use the time available to scale up our measures to prepare a foolproof plan for conducting of elections, because postponing elections for 1 or 2 years means subversion of democracy and subversion of constitutional provisions. The next article, India needs to enact a COVID-19 law. This can be placed under General Studies Paper 2, Indian Polity and Governance, in the subtopic of government policies and interventions and issues arising out of their design and implementation. The issue here is COVID-19, and we are talking about the case for an effective law to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. We will be learning about the various issues involved in the existing legal framework to deal with the crisis, also the global examples regarding the laws framed to deal with the pandemic. The article says that the nationwide lockdown, which has been the central strategy to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, is showing ad hocism, it is being reactionary, and there is a lack of coordination between the center and states. It is also questioning the legislative soundness of the lockdown. The lockdown is being carried out by the state governments and district authorities under the directions of Union Ministry of Home Affairs under the Disaster Management Act of 2005, under which National Disaster Management Authority and National Executive Committee were set up. National Disaster Management Authority is headed by Prime Minister and National Executive Committee is headed by Home Secretary. Okay, so both these institutes, they ordered for the lockdown and they also issued guidelines on March 24th for the lockdown. They issued the orders and guidelines to the states and district authorities, which would then carry forward the lockdown by using their powers under Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897. District authorities used Section 144 of CRPC of India so as to put lockdown in place. But the author observes certain challenges. Whether the Disaster Management Act is capable or is it complete enough so as to address COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the Epidemic Diseases Act is an archaic law. Whether it is applicable for a 21st century problem like COVID-19 is also doubtful. He also is casting doubts on the prosecution of people under Section 188 of IPC for disobedience to the public servant's orders. Okay, section 188 of IPC is for disobedience to public servants' orders. It is a broad provision. It has a weak basis. The fine is very less. The imprisonment provisions are also very less. So whether it will be able to deter people from actually breaking the lockdown is a question. So he says that because of all these challenges, a law should have been passed. Till March 23rd, both the houses were in session. There was no law enacted during that time. In UK, a Coronavirus Act was passed, and even in Singapore, infectious diseases regulations were given. These laws provided for unambiguous conditions. We have so much of ambiguity in our laws. So these are the stringent measures and stringent law brought down by governments of UK and Singapore. So why can't it be emulated in India? He also said that the migrant workers, the policy towards the migrant workers had been ad hoc and reactionary only. There was reversal of stance every now and then, because of which their fate was left on the district administration, which had very few resources. This also showed that there was a lack of coordination between the center and states. The author also says that the government, central government, has got ordinance making power, so it can enact a law even now, so that a statutory backing for fighting against COVID-19 will be available to us without any hindrance. The next article, should healthcare be a fundamental right? This can be discussed under General Studies paper 2, issues relating to health. The issue is healthcare architecture in India, and we are reading about the right to universal healthcare. The learning objective is to understand whether the healthcare for all can become a fundamental right in India. It says that there have been a lot of lessons which are learnt from this coronavirus pandemic. This brought out the importance of public health services. All the while, the middle class were dependent excessively on private health care. But now, the coronavirus pandemic is being handled exclusively by the government hospitals, which have traditionally been understaffed, under-resourced. So this shows the importance of public health services in fighting the pandemic. Okay, only the government hospitals are participating in fighting of the pandemic. This calls for universalization of health services. That is, the health services provided by the government should be accessible to all the population, should be affordable to all the population, which is the meaning of universalization of health care. Because the pandemic has hit large cities and even the middle class, it is high priority to fight this pandemic. There was another lesson learned, that the maximum burden is falling on the poor people. They are bearing both the disease burden as well as the economic breakdowns effects. The worst hit are the poor. Also, this article points out the neglect of the healthcare. The primary healthcare system has been grossly neglected. It has been restricted only to the immunization services and few antenatal services, while rest of the infectious diseases were given a backstage. Also, India's disease surveillance strategy has been poor, because of which we could not identify many of the diseases. Also, the tertiary care, that is the ventilators as well as the super specialty care, has to be improvised. Also, the capacity for handling of any emergency is limited. So the present pandemic has brought out all these deficiencies in the public health care that are existing. This also suggests few suggestions, that it is the time now to push forward the agenda of right to health, because right to health calls for universalization of healthcare. And now, as we have understood what role the government hospitals or the public health services can play in fighting of a pandemic, it is the right time to push the agenda of right to health. We have to increase the healthcare expenditure to 3 to 4% of the GDP. It has been only 1.4% of the GDP. It is very less when compared to the advanced economies. Health being a state subject, the article says that it has to remain a state subject, but center and state have to come to an agreement so that states are not overburdened in such crisis-like situations. Also, this article calls for a single healthcare system to be formed from a fractured system. The healthcare system is now fractured. For example, Whatever is available in government hospitals, that treatment is given, and whatever is not given, they are referred to the private hospitals without giving any other option for the poor people. So there is a lot of fracture in the system, and hence it has to be molded to a single healthcare system where all the facilities are provided to all the people. It should be universal health service. And also there should be regulation of private hospitals so that public interest is high priority to them. So this article says that healthcare should become a fundamental right in the near future, taking examples or taking the lessons learned from this pandemic. The next article, water wisdom during a pandemic, can be placed under General Studies paper 3 in the topic of environment and under the subtopic of conservation, pollution and degradation. The issue is water and climate change, how climate change is going to impact the water cycle, and what are the various mitigation strategies which are adopted by the government as well as which need to be taken by the government. So March 22nd every year is celebrated as World Water Day. This year it has been restricted mostly to online thanks to COVID-19 pandemic. This World Water Day the idea was conceived in the year 1993 by the United Nations. United Nations has created a specialized agency known as United Nations Water, which works on various water issues and also submits regular thematic reports. It is headquartered in Geneva. This year's theme for World Water Day is Water and Climate Change. The aim of World Water Day is to raise awareness on the importance of fresh water and its sustainable management. So how water and climate change are linked? This article is speaking about it. First and foremost, it says that climate change impact is directly known to us mainly through water by decreased predictability of the water availability. What is happening is extreme weather events are happening. Either flooding is happening because of increased precipitation at some places, or droughts are happening because of decreased precipitation at some places, and it is impacting all the sectors of economy and also impacting the attainment of sustainable development goals. So the impacts of climate change can be felt to us mainly by medium of water. So by decreasing predictability, water is telling us that climate change is happening in real. The other link that the article is trying to identify is by increasing water demand throughout the world, there is less water available for the carbon sinks which are critically water dependent. These carbon sinks are being degraded, and as a result the climate change is bound to increase. Carbon sinks are necessary to reduce the effects of climate change, and these are being degraded because of increased demand for water worldwide. Coming to coastal areas, what is happening is because of decreased fresh water coming from the rivers in the coastal areas, there is saline water ingression. Because of the ingression of saline water, there is a pressure on the limited freshwater resources that are available, and there may be requirement of more and more desalination plants. So how water is linked to climate change can be seen through these examples. The article also suggests some measures to fight water crisis. India already has a program called National Action Plan for Climate Change, which has 8 sub-missions, under which one mission is National Water Mission. But apart from the government, there is a necessity for participation of local governments, corporates and NGOs so that this program can be carried on effectively. The article also calls about improved resource planning, especially the water resource management has to be advanced so that effective utilization of water resources can be done. The article also calls for usage of traditional water wisdom. The traditional tanks, ponds, etc. can be reconstructed. Also, the tanks and ponds can be rejuvenated by desilting so that water can be used more effectively. Further, there is a need to raise awareness of the people regarding water conservation, like constructing of water harvesting pits, adopting climate smart agricultural practices, as well as conserving mangroves, wetlands, etc. India has got Climate sensitive sectors in the economy like agriculture, fisheries and forestry, majority of the people are dependent on these sectors which are climate sensitive. So we need to take a proactive role in efficient water management. Water is a common natural resource which plays multiple roles of promoting biodiversity and supports many ecosystems, so it has to be conserved. The next article, Vizag gas leak claims 11 lives and over 350 hospitalized. This article can be placed under General Studies Paper 3 Disaster Management. The issue is styrene gas leaks in Vizag in the residential area leading to death of few people. We are going to read about how this gas is going to impact and how different stakeholders have responded in Vizag. So what is styrene gas? It is a flammable liquid which is used for production of polystyrene plastics, fiberglass, rubber and latex. It is also produced by vehicle exhausts and cigarette smoke. It, when inhaled, has got immediate and long-term effects. In the short term, it can cause irritation of eyes, respiratory problems or gastrointestinal symptoms. While in the long run, it causes CNS damage, that is central nervous system damage, or peripheral nerves can be damaged, or some studies have shown that it can also cause cancer. Some studies have shown that because of effect to the central nervous system, there will be decreased oxygen supply to the brain, which is known as hypoxia, and there will be breathlessness, nausea and vomiting. Previously also such cases have occurred in India. Main example is Bhopal gas tragedy because of leakage of a gas known as methyl isocyanide, which occurred in 1984 December 2nd and 3rd midnight. It happened in the midnight and it led to death of many people in Bhopal. It is an extremely toxic gas which leads to death within minutes. Bhopal gas tragedy is considered as one of the worst chemical disasters globally. Following the Bhopal gas tragedy, Environment Protection Act was passed in 1987. After that, some rules were framed for manufacturing, storage and import of hazardous chemicals in 1989, and hazardous waste rules were brought in 2008. They provide for strict norms on handling and storage of hazardous waste, and styrene is included in these hazardous chemicals. So this can be invoked in the present situation where styrene has killed few people in Vizag. In 1991, another act was enacted which is known as the Public Liability Insurance Act, which calls for industries to mandatorily get insurance, and the premium will be paid towards an ERF, that is known as Environment Relief Fund. It is a central fund to provide immediate relief to the chemical accident victims. But it has been observed that this fund has largely been underutilized. This is an emergency relief fund which is formed under Public Liability Insurance Act of 1991, grossly underutilized. There is also a Civil Nuclear Liability Act 2010. It deals only with the nuclear deals, with civil liability for nuclear damage. But there is no compensation in case of gas leaks like this, so this is not applicable in this case. So in this case, what are the acts that are applicable? Environment Protection Act of 1987, the Hazardous Chemicals Rules of 1989 and Public Liability Insurance Act of 1991. A small info about what polymers are. A polymer is a chemical compound. It has got large molecules made up of many small molecules of the same kind. These molecules are known as monomers. It was the leakage of styrene monomer which led to the death of so many people in Vizag. The chemical compound is 4-tertiary butyl catechol. 4-tertiary butyl catechol. The polymers are used in various industries like automotive industry, aerospace. For building material they are used, also for medical supplies and for packaging material. So these are the various uses of polymers. You need to understand that these polymers are large chemical compounds with large molecules having many small molecules of the same kind known as monomers. The next article, US Pact for India's role in Afghanistan. This can be placed in General Studies paper 2, International Relations, India and its neighborhood. The issue is being India and Afghan relations. Dimension is USA Taliban agreement. We are going to learn about the role played by India in Afghanistan's developmental process. Also, we can learn about the USA Taliban agreement. The news is that United States Special Representative for Afghanistan was on a trip to India for building support for the full implementation of US Taliban agreement. This agreement has been derailed because of the differences between the Afghan government and the Taliban over the release of prisoners. What is this USA Taliban agreement? USA has waged a war following the 2001 September 11 attacks on the Twin Towers of USA so as to bring peace to Afghanistan. After more than 18 years of war, the US and the Taliban have signed an agreement. This is known as the USA Taliban agreement. According to this agreement, there will be release of few prisoners and troops will be withdrawn by the US from the Afghanistan soil. Also, Taliban has committed that it will not allow the use of soil of Afghanistan to threaten the security of United States and its allies. Also, the United Nations sanctions on Taliban leaders will be removed according to the USA Taliban agreement. So these are the 4 important points which offer some commitment from the US side, some commitment from the Taliban side, and also removal of sanctions by the UN on the Taliban leaders. What is the 6+2+1 group? Also known as the 6+2 group on Afghanistan or 6+2 contact group. This is an informal coalition of 6 nations bordering with Afghanistan, which include Iran, Pakistan, China, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and 2 major powers, that is USA and Russia, and one is Afghanistan. This was under the aegis of United Nations. If you look, India was not a part of this 6+2+1 group. It was an informal grouping trying to find a solution to the Afghan problem to assist in the establishment of a broadly representative Afghan government. India was not a part of this group. The present article says that US Special Representative for Afghanistan came to India so as to build support for the full implementation of the US Taliban agreement, and in that process he recognized India's constructive contribution for the economic development as well as humanitarian assistance which India provided to Afghanistan. Let us have a look at what was the various projects which India completed in Afghanistan. We helped in the construction of Salma Dam and Parliament building in Kabul. Around 200 public and private schools were built in Afghanistan by India. Many scholarships were sponsored as well as India hosts many Afghan students. The Zaranj-Dalaram highway also has been handed over to Afghanistan. So these are the various contributions of India to Afghanistan, and it has been recognized. These contributions have been recognized by the US according to the article. The next article, band-like clouds seen over Sun's neighbor. This topic can be placed under General Studies paper 3, Science and Technology, Awareness in the Field of Space. The issue is about detection of band-like clouds around a dwarf known as Lehman 16A. We are going to discuss about what are the brown dwarfs and what is the polarization phenomena. First of all, let us know about what exoplanets are. Exoplanets are the planets which are outside the solar system. Sun is a star around which 8 planets revolve. These planets you know. There are other planets which are revolving around other star systems. These are known as exoplanets. While this article is talking about Lehman 16, which is a binary star system. We have many stars other than Sun in this universe, and some of the closest stars are Alpha Centauri, which is the closest one, followed by Barnard star, and then Lehman group of stars, which is a binary star system. That means two stars are present, Lerman 16a and Lerman 16b, which orbit around each other and they cast a very dim light. First of all, what are dwarf stars? Various stars are categorized according to their size as well as their luminosity which they emit. The luminosity, if it is exceeding the sun's light, very much higher than sun's light, it is known as a giant star, and very faint light if they are producing, they are known as dwarf stars. These are of various types: blue dwarf, white dwarf, brown dwarf, etc. These brown dwarfs are also called failed stars. Why? Because they are sized less than that of a star but larger than that of planets revolving around them. Their masses being too small, they cannot sustain the fusion of hydrogen for production of energy. Okay, in stars fusion of hydrogen occurs to produce energy, but these stars cannot sustain fusion of hydrogen. But some of them which are larger, okay, some of them may be little larger in size, they may fuse deuterium or lithium and may show a faint glow. So this is regarding dwarf stars. We also discussed about brown dwarfs. These are known as failed stars because their masses are intermediate with that of largest planets and smallest stars. What do you understand by polarization? A light wave which is travels in many planes. When this light, because of any obstruction, it is restricted to only one plane, it is known as polarization. Okay, so whenever there is atmosphere around a star, it causes polarization of this light, and it is this polarization which has been observed in Lerman 16, that too in a specific pattern around the star, that shows that specific bands of clouds are present around the Lerman 16. What is the importance of these bands of clouds? It will give us information about the temperature, pressure and climate in those star systems. Usually, a star will have too much brightness to be detected. Even an extrasolar planet which is orbiting a star, if we want to detect it, the extra light from the star must be cut off to make the measurement. But here, in this case of Lerman 16, because it is producing only a faint light, it could be easily recognized and its polarization could be easily observed so as to study its cloud structure. Let us do some prelims practice questions. There is a debate of late if the healthcare must be made a fundamental right. In this context and in the wake of recent COVID crisis and the Visakhapatnam gas leak tragedy, select which among the following rights form a part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Right to protection against hazardous industries, right to health, right to timely medical treatment in a government hospital, right to privacy, right to livelihood. In various judgments, Supreme Court has declared various rights as rights under Article 21, and all these rights, that is right to protection against hazardous industries, right to health, timely medical treatment in a government hospital, right to privacy and right to livelihood, all are included under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So D is the correct answer. The next question, Lerman 16a, which is recently seen in news, is we have just now discussed, it is a brown dwarf on which cloud bands are identified. That's all for today's discussion. Thank you.